Here's how we underwrote a 26 unit value add multifamily deal that we just bought, created $2 million worth of equity in less than a year. Today, I'm going to walk you through our actual process for evaluating a value add multifamily deal. We'll go through our actual spreadsheet, show you how we ran the numbers, came up with the plan, and almost made a big rookie mistake. Today, I want to go through how we totally analyzed and underwrote this 26 unit multifamily deal in Christiansburg, Virginia. We're going to go through just a deal snapshot, what the deal looked like, property photos, some before walkthroughs, which will be fun, and then go into how we input all the income and expenses before the project and also into our pro forma for what it's going to be valued afterwards. How we created a budget as far as the turnaround plan, and then put the plan together. And then why we love this deal, why we finally actually closed on it and went through execute. So let's jump right into it with the deal. This one was located in Christiansburg, Virginia. I'll show you some pictures here. It actually has a Radford address, but hey, it's in Christiansburg on Peppers Ferry. So there's actually 4 buildings like this. They used to be townhomes, 3 level. There's 2 bedrooms in the top, 1 bedroom in the bottom. But the owners, before we came on, they have kind of divided these in 2. So now there's a 2-bedroom townhouse up top, and there's 1 bedroom, 1 bath efficiencies underneath with a garage. So that was a good idea that they went through. Here's the other side, pretty decent looking units. At least now. I'll show you some before photos and video of what it looked like when we brought it in. Another building, this is the only side that has 3-bedroom townhomes in it. And then there's an efficiency here. And then there's an apartment in the space above this. And then we actually moved our office in down here. So how this deal came to us was we run a management company, brokerage, construction company, all under the Haven Management Group umbrella. And our current client came to us and they had a previous property manager at this 26 unit building. And they had run the thing in the ground. I mean, there was very, very little upkeep, if any. There were only 9 out of the 26 units leased. So, and didn't even have keys to the other one. So it was definitely in poor repair. They had been running it as an Airbnb / midterm rental, which I don't know why you'd run that. Maybe a couple units, but not in a whole 26 unit building. But not asking any questions about that. There's a lot of maintenance stuff that needed to be done, a lot of grown-ups places, and they wanted us to come in and turn around. They were bleeding cash. It was like losing like $100,000 a year. I'm going to show you why here in a minute. But, we looked at it. We obviously love opportunities like that. We were just going to be the property manager. Excuse me. We love opportunities like this, and they wanted us to be the property manager that came in and turned this place around for them. So we went and walked it, came up with a turnaround plan, made the budget for getting the place renovated and back up to standards where we could rent it out and stabilize it. And then plan was to, manage it long-term for them, have them hold it long-term. But kind of turned into an investment deal for us because after we put our plan together for the owners, they kind of ran out of a cash runway. So they were at the point where they didn't know where they wanted to sell the property at a big loss. It was always their dream to use some of this income to fund their retirement. So they really didn't know what to do. And we kind of took a step back and said, hey, we've created this plan. We think it will work. Obviously, we wouldn't have given it to you. So why don't we come in and provide the capital for the renovations and the negative cash flow runway, and then we can, partner on the deal. You can stay on, still get your cash flow down the road for retirement, but we'll come in and finish it out and be partners on this thing. And they love that idea. So that's where we're at now, currently with the project in the execution phase. But I wanted to walk you through kind of what got us to this point, how we ran the numbers, how we put the plan together. And then later videos, we'll talk about, execution and kind of what we've been doing. So let me show you what this looked like before. So this is just a video of me explaining the project, but wanted to kind of walk you through, there's a ton of maintenance, deferred maintenance that need to be done. You can see even the groundskeeping, it hadn't been pressure washed in probably, I don't know, 10 years, maybe more. Trees were growing up over the sidewalks and over the balconies. I mean, it didn't look like anybody lived here, which basically they didn't. But just not a way to run a property. Just see, all the grown up stuff all around the properties. This was one of the units, obviously in pretty rough shape, but overall they weren't actually that bad compared to some of the stuff we walked through. But it adds up when you've got this many units that need work. Obviously, we came in this when we ripped out all the carpet, fixed the doors, pressure washed the outside. You saw the appliances. This was probably the hardest, renovation that we did, but you can kind of start to see the property, how it's laid out. Just trees growing over top of balconies, pressure washing needed. So that was the general state of things kind of as we got into. If you want to watch more of that video, it's on my YouTube channel as well. But from there, what do we do, right? So we came in and we provided a opportunity or a plan for them to go through and really bring this back up to snuff and get it back to the point where it's actually making them money. But I wanted to show you kind of our pro forma numbers. So this is how the template that I use to run all of the numbers for my multifamily deals, and differs by property, obviously, but this one has 4 buildings. We also have garages, which they weren't utilizing as far as income sources before. But I want to show you what it looked like before we took over. This is actually a lot better than what it was. It was all red. If you look at this from 6 months ago, even, it was almost all of this was red. So, the red ones right now are empty. The yellow ones we've either renovated and leased out, or we didn't. There was already somebody in there that we just left in the property. And the ones you see where utilities are included, usually that means that they were here prior to us taking over management. Which, side note, the tenants have been freaking ecstatic that we've taken over because we've kept up with the property. We've actually answered their maintenance issues. That's a whole new sidebar. But anyway, so this is how we track. We come in, we put all the unit numbers in on one side. If it's just one building, then we'll just have one long column here. We like to keep track of like what bed and bath are in each one, what the monthly revenue we're charging is. In some of these leases, there's a very small amount of utility income that we have coming in per month. But we're actually planning on flipping that with new efficient leases, which I'll show you in the stabilized numbers. Before, when they were running this as an Airbnb, they were responsible, they being the property owner, they were responsible for all of the utilities. So as you'll see in this spreadsheet, like the owner paying all the utilities and the not being reimbursed back by the tenants, or the tenants not having that responsibility totally themselves, completely crushes your net operating income at the end of the year. I think it was something like $70,000-$80,000 they were paying in utilities, and that was at 30% occupancy. So you can imagine what that bill is going to be once it's full. So monthly income, utility income, that's going to go up or go away. You can see annual income for each property is what we use to kind of run our pro forma numbers. We segmented out each garage, which we had to clean them out first, but they didn't have income coming in on them before. This is projected what we're going to start charging with the new leases. So you can see total income currently where it sits is about $250 a year. And, that sounds like a lot of money, but when you start looking at things on the expense column, we've got our management fee. Vacancy we didn't need to account for in this one because there's a vacancy is accounted for already. Our accounting fees, insurance, licensing, marketing, we don't do a lot of. That's on the property management company. We take care of pictures and all that, so it doesn't go back to the owners. Taxes is a big one. Repairs and maintenance have been a big one. And honestly, that's probably pretty light for what we're going through right now with the property. Trash and services, they were paying almost $38,000 a year in electric bills, and that was, like I said, with 30% occupancy. So you can imagine how much more that's going to be. as the property fills up, and that fluctuates throughout the year. So in the wintertime, you're going to make less money on your property than you will in the summertime, which just doesn't make sense. If you can get around that, some places you don't have a choice. Same thing with trash or water and sewer. Internet even was on the owner. So really, we looked at this as a way of how do we make this more efficient? We need to figure out how to increase the income. We need to figure out how to decrease the expenses, and really just decrease turnover as well, because that's when you start having a lot of costs. You got to come in, repaint, you got to fix appliances, you got to do X, Y, and Z, things that tenants hadn't told you about. So at the end of the day, that brings the net operating income down at 89,000. Again, sounds great, right? Well, we haven't counted our debt service in yet. So they have two loans on the property right now at about $1.5 million. And those total about 15,500 something a month, about 186,000 a year. So when you got $90,000 in net operating coming in and 186 going back out in mortgage fees, you can imagine why the owners were not very happy with their previous property manager, and they let this go on for a couple of years, honestly. So anyway, so that brings our debt service coverage ratio to less than half. If you know what a debt service coverage ratio is, we can get into that in another video, but essentially it takes your net operating income and it divides it by your total mortgage payment for the year. And that tells you, okay, for every dollar that we have to pay a mortgage, we've got X amount of income coming in after expenses. So banks usually like to see, a 1.25, 1.3 debt service coverage ratio. That means you're making 30 cents every time you pay a dollar out in mortgage, or you're keeping 30 cents every time you pay a dollar out mortgage. Right here, we're losing 50 cents on top of paying a dollar out mortgage. So that's not a good thing. So that's, current snapshot, ARV, or your value, stabilized value, with a 7% cap rate right now is about 1.27. Definitely under what we even have the debt on. So I'd venture to say the property's worth more than that, just from, a rebuild capacity. But what I really want to show you is how crazy how much value you can add, like crazy amounts of value, just by making your property more efficient, which is, again, decreasing your expenses, making your leases more efficient. So going from a month-to-month lease or a 6-month lease to all 12-month leases, making those tenants responsible for paying their own utilities, and makes them more responsible in usage as well. Because if they know the bill's coming that they've got to pay, they're going to close their windows whenever they've got their AC on. Just things like that, renegotiating vendor contracts. Our trash people were way overcharging us, so we went and got a quote from another place, and they matched that quote, which is like $3,000 less a year. So just stuff like that. Same thing, renegotiated all of the internet, which the tenant's going to be paying that anyway, but we got that number down so that the tenants don't feel the burn as much when they're doing that. So all those things are going to contribute to a huge amount of value add. And what I want to show you now is the plan that we put together. Well, what I want to show you now first, after we looked at all these numbers where we currently sit, we had to look at the budget for, sorry, I'm on the wrong tab. We had to look at the budget for construction. So we walked every single unit, after inputting all the data, walked every single unit with our contractors, put an estimate together on what that was going to cost us. So, you can see the ones in yellow here have already been renovated. They either didn't need any work done, or there was already a tenant in there, or, we've taken care of it. But we have our budgeted column, what we think it's going to cost to turn each of these units. And then we're tracking what we're actually spending. So we went through building by building, put a budget together for each unit that we felt we needed to turn before we could put a renter in there. Same thing with the exterior lighting, landscaping. There was a couple HVAC systems that we needed to replace. And then we brought that down and put it into a phased approach. So we have already completed phase one. Actually, we've turned all the 2-bedroom townhouses and got them leased out. Fixed a lot of the major issues. Did a lot of updating on the inside, new flooring, new appliances, new paint, sometimes new vanities, things along those lines. But that got those leased out very quickly. And then we're going into phase two now, which is renovating the efficiency units, getting those leased out, fixing those HVAC units we mentioned, and then renovating our office space, which is actually here as well. And we plan on kind of batching those efficiency units, same way that we did with the 2 beds. We'll go in and we'll renovate 2 or turn 2 units at one time while we're marketing those, and we've gotten pictures. We will lease those out while we go start the other 2 renovations. So once we get 2 leases on those, then hopefully we're done with the renovations on the other 2. We can do the same thing for the next 2 and just go down the line. So we're not spending all the money all at one time and having units stay open. This is a little bit more efficient way of trying to get the people in. And honestly, once it starts to snowball, you start getting more leads that you have units available. So now you can stack leases up before you even renovate a property, which is the ideal situation. So this is just a breakdown of how, we put our construction budget together. We're tracking the spend. We're tracking, budgeted versus actual. You can see we're coming under on some of these. We've come in over on the others. So we're kind of, tracking pretty well on what we do. So from there, we go back into our pro forma number. So we know where the property's at currently. We know what we need as far as construction spend goes. We put a budget together to stabilize it. And then we need to look at what our numbers look like after it's actually stabilized. That's going to give us our final value, what we're able to cash out on the new loan at, whether it cash flows based on all the funds that we have to put into this thing. And that's the determining factor if we want to move forward with a deal like this or not. So if you can see this new pro forma section, we have all of these filled out now. There's no red. This is fully stabilized. And we kind of came in under market rents on this, 2-bed, 2-bath, and 2.5-bath really in Christiansburg, Radford area, probably looking closer to like $1,600 a month. But the biggest thing here is now our determination was, instead of jacking the rents up and then passing over the expense to the tenants for utilities, let's keep it a little bit below market rents, get this place filled up, and then we can pass off the utility expenses without as much of a headache. And it creates a huge amount of value doing it this way. So you can see once we get filled up, our income's quite a bit higher than what we had it at before, right around 360 something. I think in the other example is 247. Yep. So we're adding more than $100,000, $120,000 worth of value. But the big kicker is when you look at this expense category. So once we're stabilized, we negotiated that we would drop our management fee down to 6% from 8% because it's less intensive. Now we're accounting for vacancy. 7% might be a little low, but we feel comfortable with that with our rents and everything. Got our other fees, accounting, insurance, those don't pay change. Taxes don't change, hopefully. Repairs and maintenance should go down a little bit. And then this is the huge cost savings. So trash services, that kind of stays the same, but your expenses on electric, trash or water, sewer, and your internet bill goes way, way down. So our total expenses here are 121,000 versus 158,000 when we're not even fully leased out. So that provides us with a huge amount of net operating income now. So remember, before we were at 89,000, now we're at 240,000. Now the beautiful thing with this is the cash out refinance opportunity. So when we looked at it the first time, 1.5 million, you're paying about 15,500 a month. I was like, man, it's a little high as far as the payment goes. But they had one mortgage on like a 15-year. The second one was on like a 20-year. So they were accelerating their debt payoff, which isn't a problem. However, we're at 1.5 million on that debt service. When you run the new numbers at, let's say, 2.2 million with current rates, 25-year amortized loan at 7% interest. If you look at our spreadsheet, that new $2.2 million loan is the same monthly payment as we had in the $1.5 million loan. So if we can get the value up to the point where we can cash out at 2.2 million, we can pull $700,000 back out of the property tax free. Tax free. Those aren't capital gains. That's a loan. So we get $700,000 back tax free. And we get to hold the property, which is awesome. That's why I love multifamily so much. So you can see our annual debt service is still around that 186 mark, but our NOI now is at 240. So remember the debt service ratio that we were looking at in the previous, like current example, was at 0.47. So we were losing 50 cents for every dollar that we brought in or that we paid out in mortgage. And now it's at 1.3. So anytime we bring in, or pay a dollar worth of mortgage, we're keeping 30 cents of that after expenses and everything, or calculate. So that shows the bank, hey, well, this is a strong, stable property. The new value based on this net operating income with a cap rate of 7% is about 3.5 million. So when I say we made $2 million worth of value, or added $2 million worth of value to this property in 1 year, I'm not lying. We went from 1.5 or even 1.2 million valuation up to 3.5, and we plan on having this done by the end of the year and already cashed out and refinanced. So huge returns when you look at it that way. We are investing, probably $200,000 to buy into this to finish out the construction and renovations. We will pull that $200,000 out when we do the refi. The other owners will also get $200,000, and then basically we're just splitting the rest of that to that. I guess it would be $3 million. Or 300,000, not 3 million. But yeah, I mean, it just the power of multifamily and this kind of exponential curve of value that you can add with cap rates and things like that really made it a no-brainer for us. That's how we put the plan together. When we go current to what's it doing currently, what needs to happen in order to get it to a stabilized point. What does that pro forma look like after it's stabilized? And then we want to hold it long term after that. So, this is the beauty of multifamily again. It's why we love this deal. We can get in with our capital. We can implement the plan. We can get out our capital out of the project, and then we get to hold it long term. And not only that, but there are 12 lots already subdivided on the back side of this property that could have 12 more townhouses on them. So once we do our cash out refi down the road, when rates get a little better, or construction costs come down, or we just have the opportunity to build back there, we can do another project where we have, we're adding units to the same property. There's another 5 acres to the side of it that is connected to a larger farm that has road frontage that the farmer never uses. It's just woods, but it's adjacent to this property that could be developed on. So we're looking into the future on this. A lot of folks have been like, well, why wouldn't you just purchase it from them? They were in a tough spot. You probably could have got a steal for it, but we didn't approach it that way. We wanted them to have their win and bring us in as partners, really create a great relationship. And then down the road, we'll continue to make this property or investment a great investment. And getting your money back within a year and, probably a 50% return on top of that, and you get to keep the property and it cash flows and all that's tax free. Like, it's hard to beat that. So try not to be greedy there. We really wanted the owners to have their equity still and be able to, use some of it for retirement. But at the same time, it's money. This is all business. We had to have a sound investment and a sound strategy, and they allowed us to come in and create this project with them. So huge win if we can pull this off. I'm super excited about, the progress on it so far. I think we're already up to 65, 70% occupancy. So once we knock out the rest of these efficiency units, get them leased out, get the refinance done. Then we're going to be smooth sailing from there. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Love to see you in our school group. We do deals like this in there on the regular, always posting off market stuff, education, things along those lines. And yeah, stay tuned.